Hey everyone, and welcome to Slumber Reads. Tonight we have 2 hours of horror stories as per usual. I hope you all enjoy them. If you do, please be sure to drop a like rating. Let's see if we can reach 1,000 likes on this one. Dropping a like helps out so much. Subscribing if you're new is also very much appreciated, as I do post content just like this all of the time. A quick apology for this video going up a couple days late. Last weekend I went to a retro gaming convention. I recently picked up an original Xbox again, and it was one of my favorite consoles when I was a kid. I always really wanted the Buffy the Vampire Slayer game, but I just never got it. So I was at the retro gaming convention hunting for Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I ended up finding it, which is so exciting. I got it home and played it, and the game rocks, by the way. But a couple days later, I woke up and I was just so unbelievably sick. I don't know if I got sick from the convention. One could assume I probably did. But my migraine was so bad, I just could not record. So I took a couple days to rest. I feel a lot better now. I was so sick, I wasn't even playing Buffy while I was sick. I was just laid up in bed. It was awful. But I'm feeling a lot better now. Got the video done. I hope you all enjoy it. If you would like to leave a comment letting me know what your favorite old video game is, I would love to read through those comments. I love conversations about old video games, so let me know. Let me know what your favorite old game is. But yeah, sit back, do whatever it is that you do to relax. Enjoy the 2 hours of horror stories with no mid-roll ads. Except for the ad break after this intro, there will not be any more ad breaks after that one. And as always, I hope you all have a great night. My husband is the perfect man. Every woman I know has told me so. I just found out why. We met 3 years ago. He was everything. Attentive, funny, remembered the name of my childhood dog on the second date. My friends were almost annoyed at how good he was. Nobody's that perfect. My best friend Kara said. I laughed. I should have listened. The wedding was beautiful. The house came next. A Victorian fixer-upper in a small town 2 hours from the city. His idea. We need space, he said. Away from all the noise. I agreed. I was in love. I would have agreed to anything. The first year was good. He cooked, he cleaned, he left notes on my pillow. He planned surprise trips. He never raised his voice. He never forgot an anniversary or a birthday or a random Tuesday he declared us day. My mother adored him. My coworkers envied him. Kara stopped warning me and started saying she wished she could find someone like him. I noticed the first thing about 6 months ago. It was small. So small I almost didn't register it. He was chopping vegetables and I saw him switch the knife from his right hand to his left. I said something like, I didn't know you were ambidextrous. He smiled and said, I'm full of surprises. I let it go. But I'd known him for 2.5 years at that point. I'd watched him write, eat, drive, throw a football, open jars, brush his teeth. He was right-handed. He had always been right-handed. Now he was left-handed. Like a switch had flipped. I started watching. His handwriting changed. Not dramatically. The slant was slightly different. The pressure was lighter. If you weren't looking for it, you'd never notice. I was looking. He started sleeping on the other side of the bed. He started taking his coffee black instead of with cream. He started humming songs I'd never heard him hum before. Old songs. Songs from before he was born. Small things. Tiny things. A dozen tiny things that each meant nothing on their own. I asked him about the coffee one morning. Since when do you drink it black? He looked at me with this expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not confusion. Something else. Something circulating. Like I'd asked a question he'd been expecting, and he was deciding which answer to use. Trying something new, he said. New year, new me. It was June. I started keeping notes in a private document on my phone. A list of changes. The handedness, the handwriting, the coffee, the sleeping position, the humming. I added to it every time I noticed something. By August, the list had 47 entries. 47. I know what the number means now, but I didn't then. The dog knew first. We have a golden retriever named Gus. I've had him since before I met my husband. Gus loved him from day one. Would sleep at his feet, would bring him toys, would whine when he left for work. Around the time I started my list, Gus had stopped doing any of that. He wouldn't enter the same room as my husband. He'd freeze in doorways. He'd growl in his throat, a sound I'd never heard him make. At night, he'd press himself against my side of the bed and stare at the bedroom door. All night, every night. My husband said Gus was getting old. Dogs get weird in their senior years, he said. Gus is 4. Last month, I woke up at 3 a.m. and my husband wasn't in bed. I found him in the basement. He was standing in the dark, facing the wall, completely still. Not moving, not speaking, just standing there like someone had paused him. I said his name. He turned around and his face was wrong. For just a second, less than a second, his features were slightly off. The eyes a little too far apart, the mouth a little too wide, like someone wearing a mask that had slipped. Then it was gone and he was my husband again. Smiling. Couldn't sleep? He said. Came down here to think. He kissed my forehead and went back to bed. I stood in the basement for 10 minutes after he left, trying to convince myself I'd imagined it, trying to unsee what I'd seen. I couldn't. That night, I added entry 48 to my list. Face slipped. The next morning, I called Kara. I hadn't talked to her in months. He'd slowly separated me from everyone. Not dramatically, not with rules or demands, just with suggestions. Kara's kind of negative, don't you think? Your mom stresses you out. Maybe we skip this visit. Your coworkers don't respect you. You should look for something remote. One thread at a time until I was alone in a Victorian house 2 hours from anyone I knew. Kara didn't answer. I tried my mom. No answer. I tried 3 other friends. Nothing. I checked my texts, my calls, my emails. I'd been reaching out. I had the sent messages to prove it. But nobody had responded in weeks. I checked my husband's phone while he was in the shower. I found a blocked numbers list. Kara, my mom, my dad, my brother, every friend I'd ever had, every coworker I'd ever mentioned. Blocked. Not on my phone, on his. He'd been intercepting. He'd been responding to them as me, telling them I needed space, telling them I was going through something, telling them not to contact me. There were hundreds of messages, months of them. He'd been both of us, the perfect husband and the wife who was pushing everyone away, building a cage out of my own voice. I didn't confront him. I pretended everything was normal. I smiled at dinner. I kissed him goodnight. I waited until he was asleep and then I went to the basement. I don't know what made me look behind the water heater. Some instinct, some part of my brain that had been putting pieces together while the rest of me was playing wife. There was a door. Not a real door. A hole in the wall covered by a piece of drywall that had been cut to fit. Behind it was a space. A small room, maybe 6 feet by 4 feet. Concrete floor, no windows. A single light bulb hanging from a wire. And on the floor was a phone. My phone. My old phone. The one I'd lost at the airport 6 months ago. He'd helped me look for it. He'd been so concerned. He'd bought me a replacement the next day. The phone was still on. It was plugged into a charger that ran through the wall. The screen showed a messaging app, open to a conversation with someone named Collector. The last message was from 3 hours ago. Specimen 47 is fully integrated. Subject has not detected the transition. Recommend proceeding to harvest phase. Estimated yield, 94% compatibility. Previous specimens, 46. Success rate, 100%. Above that were photos. Dozens of photos. All of women. all taken without their knowledge. Sleeping, showering, reading, crying, living their lives while something documented them. One of the photos was of me, from last night, asleep in my bed, taken from the doorway of my bedroom. I scrolled up. The conversation went back years. There were 46 previous specimens. Each one had a name. Each one had photos. Each one had a final message. Harvest complete. Specimen number processed. Replacement deployed. I looked up the names. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely type. Every single one was a missing woman. Different states, different years, all unsolved. All last seen with a boyfriend or husband who was described by everyone as the perfect man. I heard footsteps above me. He was awake. I'm in the bathroom now. The door is locked. He's knocking, softly, patiently, the way he does everything. Babe, come out. Let's talk about this. His voice is exactly right. Exactly the voice I fell in love with. Warm, concerned, loving. But I can hear something underneath it now. Something I never noticed before. A second voice. Quieter, behind the first one. Like two people speaking at the same time, but one of them is farther away. Babe, I'm not going to hurt you. You know me. You know I'd never hurt you. The door handle is turning. Slowly. The lock is holding, but I don't know for how long. I'm posting this because I need someone to know. If you're reading this and you're in a relationship with a man who's perfect, too perfect, if he remembers everything, if he never gets angry, if he's slowly separated you from everyone you used to know, if your dog won't look at him, if you've noticed small things that don't add up, check his phone, check the basement, check behind the water heater, and count the changes. If you've noticed exactly 47 of them, run. Muffled voices bleed up through the floor. I can't make out the words from here, but I don't think they're actually speaking. It's just sound. I can imagine my family sitting in a circle, blank-faced, the sounds of laughter and nonsensical speech flowing from their mouths. Their jaws wrenched open wide. My family isn't real anymore. I don't know when it happened. Maybe today, maybe a year ago, but they aren't in there anymore. The bathroom is dark except for a candle on the counter. My skin barely registers the lukewarm bath water I'm soaking in. I still feel dirty, like my not family is sticking to me. I rise from the tub, careful to not make a sound. Towel off and press my ear against the floor. The things that replaced my family try to keep up appearances, but whenever I've been out of the room for long enough, their voices begin to slur and jumble together. That's what I hear now. Incoherent noise. It still sends chills down my spine, listening to their idle voices chatter on like this. They overlap one another, laughter interjecting at random. As bad as it is hearing this, their behavior when I am around is 1,000 times worse. They're all smiles and pats on my back, making sure I'm okay or that I've eaten enough. They don't seem to want to let me out of their sight. A couple hours ago, when I came upstairs to take my bath, they stood outside the door with hushed voices for several minutes until they finally decided to go back downstairs. I decided I'm leaving. I don't drive yet, I'm just 15, but I have a friend about 2 miles away whose parents are on vacation. I don't have a long-term plan, but this'll be fine for now. In my bedroom I pack light, 2 changes of clothes, phone charger, the pocket knife my dad gave me when I turned 13, a water bottle. David will have everything else. My heart is in my throat. If I breathe too loudly, my not family will be at my door, forcing me to pick what we're eating tonight. I shoulder my backpack and slide open the window. The screen pops out easy enough. I toss my bag to the grass below and lower myself out the window before dropping to the ground. The side gate would be too loud to use, so I creep across the lawn toward the back fence. I can use the neighbor's gate on the other side. Peter? It's my mom's voice. I turn just enough to see she's running towards me from the back door, arms as wide as her smile. Just have dinner with me, please. One last time. I'm sprinting as fast as I can, backpack bouncing awkwardly as I go. I jump and pull at the top of the fence, but her grippy hands wrap around my waist and pull. Mexican beef tacos with chili powder and cumin and cilantro for topping. I land a kick in her chest and she falls away with a gasp of pain. Peter! She's crying. How could you do that to your mother, Peter? I almost feel bad. It's her real voice. This thing is using. I pull myself up the rest of the way and take a look back. She's flat on her back, dirt on her blouse, but she's smiling. That thing isn't my mother. Dad and Lily are smiling at me from the back porch, too. I swing over the fence, hurry across the neighbor's yard, and stride out into the street. After a few minutes, I slow to a walk. It doesn't seem like they followed. The whole way to David's, I'm glancing over my shoulder, but they aren't back there. The steady mid-afternoon traffic eases my fear, like there's still something sane in the world. There's a birthday party at the park, and then I'm ringing David's doorbell. Family trouble? I try to act nonchalant, chuckle. Parents are being annoying. He smiles, but it's just a normal smile. Thank God. You have no idea, he says. We're on the couch scrolling when he turns to me. Dude, you seen this? It's everywhere. It's one of those stupid viral rituals. I've seen them in my feed a lot recently. The girl on screen is in a dark bathroom lit only by a candle. She stares at her face in the mirror. She takes out a Sharpie and draws a weird symbol on the glass. I feel like I've seen it before. I invoke the dandelion. Let my hands and legs do your bidding. Let my breath and life be yours forever. She screws up her face, her lips twitching. Then the phone drops to the floor, still pointing at her. She looks scared, eyes darting in every direction. Yeah, so after this she clicked post, I ask. Obviously it's not real, but it has 1 million likes. You know the ad revenue on that? Don't. Just don't. He laughs. Bro, you're such a lightweight. I did it like a week ago. It's fake. I smirk, brushing it off. Yeah, I know. The rest of the day is quiet. After boxed mac and cheese, hot dogs, and a stupid comedy, David heads to bed. I'm on the couch, the moon crawling in through the windows, casting eerie shadows outlined in silver. I keep seeing my mom chasing me across the yard, but it's all messed up. There's blood smeared across her face. I'm not sleeping tonight, so I scroll. My For You page is full of this ritual crap. I try to scroll past it all, but it's video after video, symbol after symbol. One comment stands out. Don't do this. My family is hunting me down now. I close the app and get up to go to the bathroom. I splash my face with water. I almost don't recognize myself in the mirror. Then I see the symbol scrawled in Sharpie before me. I'd forgotten I'd done it. David whispers from his bedroom door down the hall. I startle and lock eyes with him. A slash of moonlight separates him from the shadows. You killed your family too, didn't you? No, I didn't. They were after me. I thought my parents were too. That's why you came here, right? It wasn't until mine were dead that I remembered doing the ritual. He nods towards the bathroom. When did you do it? I shove out into the hall and sprint out into the living room, not wanting him behind my back for a second. My knife is in my bag somewhere. I know it. I'm digging and digging. He's slowly walking toward me. Just admit it. Stay back. I can see the evil in his eyes. It felt good, didn't it? Carving into their annoying, pestering flesh. I didn't. My heart is bobbing up into my throat. He chuckles, then takes a deep breath. But you're free now. It's all over. I lay hands on my knife, flick it open and hold it out toward him. Then I feel the layers of sticky, dried blood on its handle. I see the sheen of crimson across the blade in the moonlight. Who did you enjoy killing the most? I see my dad and sister, their throats slit, staring up at me from the back porch. Those jagged red lines are almost like smiles. I see Mom round the house, stumbling toward me across the yard, bleeding from her neck but still alive. Peter, just have dinner with me, please. One last time. She's crying when I kick her in the chest. I see the symbol still scrawled across my bathroom mirror before I bathe their sticky blood from my body. I didn't enjoy any of it. I'm crying now, but it's too late. Today was my last day of 8th grade. We do this thing called a clap out for the 8th graders to celebrate our last day. The 6th and 7th graders lined up in the halls and clap and throw confetti and spray silly string at us as we leave. It was pretty cool. Middle school wasn't easy, but on my very last time leaving, I felt like I was part of the group. In the parking lot, people high-fived me and asked me to sign their yearbooks. I had a really good day. The parking lot eventually emptied out. Other people had pool parties and barbecues to go to. When I finally got up to leave, I looked back one last time. Maybe high school would be better. I was halfway home when I realized I forgot my stupid retainer in my gym locker. I remember the time I accidentally threw it out. My mom made me dig through the trash to get it. I said it was gross. She said it was expensive. I headed back to school. There was only one car in the parking lot by the time I got back. It started to rain. So much for those pool parties and barbecues. The doors were still unlocked, but the halls were completely deserted. Mounds of confetti, silly string, and papers littered the floor. The lights were half off, flickering a little. An hour ago the place felt like a party. Now it made me feel weird. I thought there'd be a few teachers around, at least the janitor cleaning up. I got that feeling where the back of your neck tingles. I really wanted to go. I'm not sure why. As I turned the corner, I heard a faint noise. I realized it was singing. My walk turned into a jog. With each turn, the singing got louder and louder. I came to a stop right outside the locker room. It was coming from inside. The hair on my arm stood up. Then I felt kinda stupid. It's just music. I remembered how kids made fun of the janitor for listening to old people music on a little portable radio. I calmed down a little. He was probably sweeping in there. I looked at the massive mess all around me and felt bad. I pushed open the door. The room was empty, but the tinny music got louder with every step. I peeked around the corner. The wheelie garbage can and push broom were abandoned right in front of my locker. Where was the janitor? I don't know why, but I was hoping I could get in and out without seeing him. I crouched and grabbed the handle. My stomach dropped. The cold metal vibrated against my fingers. The music was coming from inside my locker. The skin on my neck prickled. I had to open it. In a messed up way, I had to know what was in there. Plus, if I went home without my retainer, my mom would kill me. I lifted the handle. The radio was in there. So was the janitor. His legs were crushed and folded up behind him the wrong way. The soles of his sneakers were up by his ears. One of his arms was twisted back at the elbow. His neck was bent at a right angle. His eyes were open. I thought he was dead. Then he took a deep breath and smiled at me. "Hey, kid," he said. I panicked and grabbed his hand. I thought someone had shoved him in there. I had to get him out. I put all my weight back on my heels and pulled, but he was stuck. He laughed at me. "You're going the wrong way." His rough hands dug into mine. "There's enough room for you." He hauled me forward. I stumbled and my face slammed into his crumpled torso. He was damp and smelled sour. His chest jiggled as he laughed again. "That's the spirit," he said. He wrapped his arm around my head and tugged me halfway into the locker. My head hit the cold metal in the back, and I heard a crack in my neck. I literally saw stars. I thought that was just in cartoons. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. I thought about the one car in the parking lot. No one would hear me anyway. I'm a freshman now, I thought. I'm getting out of here. I drove my knees into the frame of the locker as hard as I could. I tasted blood in my mouth, but I didn't care. The janitor laughed and laughed, until I tore myself free and landed hard on the tile floor. He frowned. "Fine, go," he said. Then he pulled the locker closed. Inside, he sang along with the music. When times get rough and friends just can't be found, like a bridge over troubled water, I will lay me down. Outside, the rain had passed. The air was dense and muggy, but it felt fresh to me. The single car in the parking lot roared to life. My 6th grade English teacher waved as she passed and pulled away. Then it was just me. In the quiet, I swore I could still hear him singing. When I got home, I told my mom I stepped on my retainer. She yelled at me, but I didn't care. I'd rather be grounded than stuck in middle school. Forever. I'm writing this because all of the shrinks I've visited think I'm delusional. They believe something happened to me, but I dissociated the entire event and instead imagined this place. I didn't. Nothing I felt or experienced was imaginary. I don't know how I caught its eye, or if it will come back for me, and I live in fear of that simple thought every day. So here I am, writing this down to warn others, to tell them of the nightmare I experienced. Though honestly, I don't think this is really a warning, so much as it is a victim statement. On my 21st birthday, I disappeared for 3.5 years. I only know this because I've been told nearly 1,000 times. I've been poked and prodded with so many needles that I've made voodoo dolls jealous. No one understood what happened to me. Hell, I don't understand what happened, but I know it was real. It was around 3 in the afternoon. I was excited to finally be able to drink at the bar with my friends. They had always teased me because I was the youngest, and the de facto designated driver because of it. But tonight it was my turn to get so drunk I wouldn't remember where I put my feet. It never came. I was going to stop by my best friend's place before we headed out. He lived just a few blocks away, so I figured I'd walk over. And when the time came, he'd be the designated driver for the evening. As I rounded the corner to his street, things changed. The world around me seemed like it was made of liquid. The air felt oppressively thick, and I had trouble finding my breath. I choked and gasped, clawing for air as everything around me seemed to shimmer and undulate. It was suddenly like I was swimming. Air seemed to vacate the space I was in quickly, and I felt the world darkening around me. Nausea gripped my gut to the point that I had fallen to my knees, gripping my stomach as the world spun. Then, everything blacked out. When I came to, I was somewhere else. It was a room. Everything looked like it was made from polished steel. There was no door, no windows, and nothing to indicate what time it was. There was just a single metal bench on the far end of the room, long enough to fit 3 people. As I explored and tried to get a sense of my surroundings, another overwhelming wave of nausea gripped me. The world spun as I clung desperately to consciousness, only to see one of the walls open and a pair of human-looking figures step into the room. I didn't see them fully, though. The world faded with my consciousness. The next time I woke, I was in a lying position. My head was throbbing, and there was some intense light burning into my eyes. I couldn't reach for my forehead, though. My hands had been secured to whatever I was on. I panicked. Desperately, began to thrash and pull at my restraints, but I couldn't move. I wanted to cry out, but something was covering my mouth. "Relax," a voice said from somewhere I couldn't see. "We understand there may be some confusion, but that is part of the experiment." I struggled against the bonds, cries for help muffled by whatever was over my face. "This will go far more smoothly if you just relax," the voice spoke again. "We cannot accurately determine the level of stress you are under, if you are already under so much of it." It was cold, clinical. Finally, something entered my vision. I wanted to scream when I saw it. I wanted to deny it was real, but I couldn't. It had no face to speak of, just a mass of flesh with what looked like a long, thin line traveling from top to bottom. The top of its head was crowned with strange, fleshy tendrils that opened to small rolls at the end of each. I counted 5 on the thing's head as it seemed to regard me. This will, unfortunately, be quite painful. However, it is of utmost importance to us that in the end you answer honestly. Hampering our experiments will only lengthen the process. For this reason, we recommend you comply. There was a click, and whatever covered my mouth was removed. "What are you? What is this place? I didn't sign up for whatever your experiments are." "Most test subjects don't volunteer to be tested upon." The thing spoke, but it had no face. There were no moving lips. I think it was at this point that I realized it wasn't talking to me. It was thinking at me. "Let me go, just let me go, and we can forget this happened," I begged. "That would yield unsatisfactory results," it replied. "Now, I would recommend preparing yourself, but we are unsure how prepared you will be able to make yourself." The soft electrical hum of machinery filled my ears as I felt my arm beginning to move on its own. The machine extended it outward at first, so that it was parallel with my shoulder. It conducted a few more experiments, testing this range of motion in my arm. Then the machine started to bend downward. Before I could call out, before I could tell this thing to stop, my arm snapped, broken in two like a branch, the bone spiking from my flesh. I screamed. Agony flooded my system. Adrenaline flooded my veins. My breath was suddenly ragged in my chest as I fought back tears, groaning in absolute anguish. "Please, explain what you are experiencing," the entity demanded. I could only scream. Pain flooded my system, and all I could think about was how much it hurt. "On a scale of 1 to 10, please rate your pain." It kept going, completely ignoring my screams. Eventually, shock started to settle in. The pain was still there, but I could think. "It's an 11. Is that what you wanted me to say? Will you let me go now? You broke my arm. You have your data." The creature tilted its head as it looked at me. "We have only just begun our experimentation. You are already unable to continue." Yes, for the love of God, I cannot keep going," I begged. "Please, please, please, just let me go." There was another click, and soon my other arm snapped, sending agonizing jolts of electric pain through my body again. Again I screamed. Again I was racked with agony. "Please, please, for the love of God, let me go." The entity regarded me the same way. Cold, methodical, like a scientist taking notes on a lab rat. Because that's all I was. I was a lab rat, a toy, and this thing was gauging what it felt like when it broke me. My leg was next, and again the pain was excruciating. I passed out at this point. The world went white around me as my body tried to cope with the sheer amount of trauma it was being put through. Evidently, though, these things had something for that too. I snapped back awake as it broke my other leg, the creature watching with some sort of bizarre fascination. At least, I think it was. There was no real way for me to determine what this thing was doing. At this point, your body has suffered severe trauma. The levels of pain you are experiencing will have flooded your body with extreme levels of adrenaline. If it weren't for the fact that this thing was talking in my head, I wouldn't have heard it through the haze of suffering it cast over my thoughts. Another click. Another whir. I felt my head being pulled upward. The pain in my neck was growing more intense as the machine continued to pull. Then suddenly there was nothing. No pain, no voices, no anything. The world around me faded and there was black. That was the first time I died. I woke on the ground an indeterminate amount of time later. No broken bones, no bruises, no cuts, nothing. It was as if the brutal agony I had just gone through never existed. The problem with that mindset, with those thoughts, was that it did happen. I remembered every second of it vividly. Getting over the shock of things, I decided to get my bearings. I was in another room. From what I could tell, there was a bench, much like the one I had seen when I first arrived in this place, and everything was that same polished metal. There were no signs of anything else, just the bench, what looked like a sink, and that was essentially it. So I moved to the bench, sat down, and waited. All I had were my thoughts, and those weren't doing me much good at the moment. Outwardly, I seemed calm enough, but inside I was panicking. None of this made any sense. Where was I? How did I get here? Didn't I just literally have my head ripped off my shoulders? I didn't have much time to think. I was hit by another wave of that crippling nausea. I tried to fight it, to maintain my consciousness, but eventually I was still overtaken. When I woke, I was on some sort of fleshy mass, and as my vision focused, my stomach rolled. The entire room looked like it was made of living flesh. The walls undulated and pulsed with an unseen energy. The ground was soft and a little difficult to move across. There was a smell in the air, clean and chemical, but underneath it, there was another odor, one I couldn't quite place. I wasn't restrained this time, but I almost wish I was. The place I was in was unlike anything I had ever seen before, and that only made me want to run. "Do not be so frightened," I heard a clinical voice call out. "Your last test went smoothly enough, so we are going to continue experimentation. Please, be prepared to give us a thorough explanation of what you are feeling." "I'm feeling terrified is what I'm feeling. You guys killed me. You ripped my head off. You broke my arms and legs. Now you've got me here. Let me go." "When the experiments are finished, you will be free to leave," the voice patiently responded. "Remember, compliance drives progress. The more information you give us, the less you will have to endure." They killed me again that night. I was mauled by some sort of ravenous dog-like creature. All the while they continued to ask me to rate my pain, to explain exactly what I was feeling. All in all, they killed me 1,278 times. Every morning I'd wake up alive, no damage, but the scars on my mind remained. I was shot, stabbed, poisoned, starved, infected, drowned, burned, and brutalized. Each time it only took a day for me to die. Anything that slowly killed me would be accelerated as they tried to gather more data. Sometimes my death was quick, and those were the ones I learned to appreciate. Other times, though, it dragged on for what felt like an eternity of pure and utter pain. I learned a lot about life, religion, the soul, and all of that superstitious BS. You want to know what happens when you die? Where you go? The answer is terrible. It's not just a ceasing of existence like the atheists believe, but there's also no paradise or pit. It's nothing. I don't mean that in a nihilistic sense. I mean it literally. It's blackness. There's no smells, no sound, nothing to feel or taste. It's just a vast emptiness. The horrifying part, though? You're aware, you're present. Just a consciousness in utter nothingness, floating through the void. The worst death? The worst thing I ever experienced in my time being killed daily? Drowning. The whole time your body is screaming at you, telling you you are dying, begging you to find air so it can reset itself and keep you moving, but it can't. So you start to get this, pins and needles feeling all over your body. Your ears start to ring and then everything starts to go dark. Then you're in the void, dead. Sometimes it felt like they let me stay dead for longer, but in the end I'd always wake up in the same place. Cool, metal room with nothing but a bench and a sink in it. Nothing changed about their demeanor. They simply continued to ask questions, and if my death was quick, they'd inquire about what I felt when they brought me back, ask me questions about my mindset, to rate my pain. The same things over and over. I eventually became numb to dying. I'd wake up, knowing that the day held another way for me to be annihilated. The creatures would gas me, take me into one of their experimentation rooms and kill me. For 3.5 years, they killed me. Then, one day I was brought into one of the test chambers. The entity was already in there. I wasn't restrained or gassed, just brought before it. I wanted to lunge at it, to make it experience a modicum of the death I had tasted at its hands, but something was preventing it, like my mind wasn't going to let me move against it. After this, testing will have concluded. We've gathered all of the information we need from you. It thawed at me. My heart skipped a beat, and for the first time since my arrival, I felt the bitter taste of hope in my mouth again. You mean you're going to let me go? You will be released when testing is concluded. We had promised this when testing began. I couldn't believe it. All right then, let's get this over with. The entity said nothing else. It turned to me. It wore no clothes. Its body was this mixed hue of light purples and pinks, almost like bruised flesh. Its skin wrinkled in strange places, and its arms were too long. They nearly touched the ground. Its knees bent in the opposite direction, but that didn't seem to slow it as it bent and moved forward at an alarming speed. I felt it place a hand on my shoulder, felt the familiar agony of a vice-like grip lifting me into the air to meet its face. I had seen what was hidden behind that slit in the head once. I never wanted to again. One of the tendrils on its head moved into my view, and I watched as a long, bone-colored needle slid from the hole in it. I slit my throat with that needle, and I bled out on the ground in front of it. My last thought hearing, "Thank you for your cooperation." I woke on the ground the same place I had disappeared, the corner of the street near my buddy's house. I didn't know how long I'd been gone at this point, or how many times I had died, only that it was over. The relief I felt was overwhelming. I couldn't believe I was free. I laid there in the road staring at the sky and not a chrome ceiling. For the first time since I had been taken, I began to weep. I was so overwhelmed with everything that had happened that I just broke down and sobbed in the middle of the road. I don't know how long I cried for, but God, it was cathartic. I did eventually head over to my friend's house, and I scared the crap out of him. That was when I had found out I was gone for 3 years, that no one knew what happened to me. I tried to explain what had happened, but as I did, I realized how crazy it sounded. Yeah, man, I was coming to your place so we could go get smashed, and I was abducted by some alien thing that killed me every day for the 3.5 years I was gone. Doesn't exactly come off as something a sane person would tell anyone. The police were contacted. My parents were contacted. The news showed up. I was a local celebrity for a while. No one believed me about the alien, though. If that's even what it was. Maybe it was a demon. Maybe it was something else entirely. All I know is that it was able to kill me and bring me back completely unharmed. Eventually, it was suggested I talk to a psychiatrist. Everyone believes something happened to me, that I was kidnapped and taken somewhere, maybe feed copious amounts of psychoactive drugs, so that I'd think it was all aliens and dying. But when I explained what happened to the shrink, when I went into graphic detail about dying in so many different ways, I could see the concern on the doc's face. They tried all sorts of therapies, tried to get me to open up about what happened, but every time the story was the same. I was abducted, and some weird alien thing killed me, over and over again. They couldn't get the breakthrough they were hoping for. So I was tested, medically. Doctors wanted to know if I had been dosed with psychotropic medicines, or some such BS. No one could accept my story. I still don't think anyone believes me, and I don't blame them. I mean, if I had been told by someone they had been killed over 1,000 times in over 1,000 different ways, I don't think I'd believe them either. I don't know what it was that they were trying to determine. or why it involved killing one person, but I know that it was a nightmare. I'm terrified of heat mirages at this point. I don't know if these things are done with me, or if they're just luring me into a false sense of security. It doesn't matter though. If they came again, I couldn't stop them. And if they come for you, you won't be able to stop them either. Those who celebrate Father's Day usually have a fun story or two to share about a bonding moment. I've been meaning to write here for some time, but needed to get into the new rhythm with my family. A lot has happened these past few weeks, but I'll never be able to see my father in the same light again. My family and I have been pretty insular from the outside world as far back as one could expect. My great-grandfather moved our family to the outskirts of nowhere, Wisconsin, to live out the family business of trapping and hunting. We've stayed in the same remote area ever since. It wasn't much, but it gave us enough food and income to sustain ourselves. Folks around here don't trust much of the world outside the great woods, and have come to trust our neighbors instead. You'd think in such a remote part of the world, you'd be pretty close with your family. Well, you'd be wrong. All my life, my father went out into the woods surrounding our pasture hunting for game. It didn't matter what he'd be after. Deer, elk, pheasant, even black bear. Any excess meat or hide we'd sell to local markets, or trade with neighbors. Despite this, hunting kept my father away for most of my life. He missed every important period of my life. My mother gave birth alone in the hospital while he hunted in the woods with my older brother, Rhett. He wasn't there for my first steps, never helped me with schoolwork, Little League baseball games, a no-show. He didn't even bother coming to my graduation earlier this year. The only semblance of father-son dynamic was he'd come home each night and give me a hug. No words, just a 10-second embrace and, occasionally, a kiss on the forehead. He'd always smell weird, like old grass, dirt, and body odor. I could see the lifeless, ragged look in his eyes from a long day. His absence would be worth it if he actually knew how to hunt. Despite how long the family has been in the hunting game, I've never seen him bring home a single prize. No deer, no elk, not even small game like rabbits or squirrels. Was he just messing around in there? I knew he was in those woods because I would hear his rifle constantly. Even in the dead of night, I'd hear the piercing roars of his Winchester 94 off in the distance once every few hours. I used to think he must have seen something in those if he fired off a few times every 7 or 8 hours or so. Dad and my older brother Rhett never took me on their hunting trips. They always told me I wasn't ready, despite practicing with a rifle since I was strong enough to hold one as a 6-year-old. I was good too. The purposeful distance never helped them. Thankfully, Rhett was a much better hunter than Dad. Most days, Dad and Rhett would venture into the woods together like clockwork, but it would never be Dad to make the kill. Rhett always brought in the big game, and supported us financially. In the evenings, I'd help Rhett out with skinning, processing, and packaging the meat. Rhett and his wife, Jess, recently moved back into our home. Rhett was 30, and was preparing to be a dad of his own. Jess was in her 3rd trimester, and while Rhett was working his butt off to be a provider, our dad was always out in those woods, wasting the days away from his family. Rhett and Dad often took shifts so that one might have an opportunity to rest. It was difficult to not be resentful, even with his occasional evening hugs. Those don't make up for lost time. I recall one night when I was 16, talking to Rhett about Dad's disappearance. We didn't talk too much about our feelings, but what's an older sibling meant for if nothing else? Rhett, I mumbled, why does Dad not want to be around me? I recall Rhett pausing his hands, looking down pensively at the young elk hide he'd been cleaning since noon. He does want to be around. Dad does love us. He really does. He just... Rhett exhaled sharply. It's not my place to say. Not yet. Just know he is doing everything he can for us. For you. He and I both do. You'll understand when you're older. Rhett hugged me close once he saw how watery my eyes were from frustration. I didn't know at the time, but Rhett was right. Even if he seemed non-existent, he was out there doing the best he could. I know they say it's the thought that counts, but it would have been nice to be near him growing up. Everything changed about a month ago when I turned 18. I had just graduated high school, and was still considering what to do with my life. I initially wanted to join the family business, and hunt alongside my brother. But if I couldn't join in, maybe go off to community college, make a name for myself, make Dad proud that I became something other than some voyager wannabe in the Midwest. Last month, in the early morning while Rhett was out in the woods hunting, Dad came into my room. "Time to get up, Will. Get dressed. There's something I need to show you." I got up groggily, waking up with another head full of messy brown hair. "What do you want? I'm not in the mood today." My dad sat at the foot of my bed. "I know it's been hard. It's difficult for me to explain, but there's a reason I'm always off in those woods. I think you're old enough now to understand better. Just know that whatever you're about to see, I've done it for you. Rhett's been pushing me to take you out into those woods earlier, but he knows my reasons for waiting. Happy birthday, son. It's time I took you hunting and taught you our family business." Great. Finally 18. And my first gift from my father was work. Something felt off, though. Dad always seemed weary, but never this invested into my own personal life. I grabbed my jacket, brown cargo pants, boots, and got out the door. For the first time ever, I went hunting with my dad. Our trek into the big woods took over an hour. Pine trees loomed over us, blocking out the sun as we ventured further and further out into the woods. It was pretty barren, and we never ran into or saw any animals worth shooting. Eventually, we reached a tall deer stand used for hunting with elevated range. The tower stood several meters over the ground, standing solidly in place by the massive iron poles and wire anchoring the structure to the earth below. The windows were covered by camouflage blinds, blending the box-like structure into the spring foliage around it. The only way into it was a shabby wooden ladder. It was a bad time to admit to my dad that I was afraid of heights, but I wasn't about to blow my one chance. Entering the hunting stand, I was sat amazed. Hundreds of pictures lined the walls inside the room. Some recent, some old. Family pictures. Looking closer, I realized they were pictures of important moments of my life. Pictures of me as an infant, me wearing an oversized Little League uniform before my first game. Pictures of me in bed sleeping as a toddler, my first bath. Church events, all with me front and center. Mom and Rhett were in them too, but it was clear that I was the focus of this collage. Dad? What is all this?" He looked at me, smiling softly. "Will, I know I haven't been around too much. Not spending time with you, not seeing you crawl as a baby, not being there for your first steps. Seeing you grow, it was heartbreaking. All I want to do is protect you, but..." He paused, voice cracking. "There can only be 2 hunters at a time for this thing, and I didn't want to subject you to what I've had to do these past 18 years. I'm getting older and I want to spend time with you. The real you, and I can't keep doing this forever. It's time you take over." "Dad, what are you..." I was interrupted by a hollow cracking noise coming from the woods. It sounded far, like a dead tree falling down. Only there was no loud crash, just more cracking. "Hold that thought, son. Let's get this done quickly. I've fixed the rifle at its head. I need you to see what I've been hunting all these years." I shimmied over towards the rifle. It was postured with a metal rest, fixed towards a dark region out into the woods. Looking through the scope, my heart dropped. Far off into the woods was a gangly figure, splayed out across the forest floor. A body without a head. Its old-timey clothes made it stand out like a sore thumb in these woods. Whoever this was, They wore corduroy pants, an ivory-collared shirt buttoned all the way up, and a dark gray, withered suit jacket one might see in a production of Oliver Twist. I jolted backwards, twisting my head so fast it almost gave me whiplash. Jesus, Dad, what is that? It's not what it looks like, son. Look closer, son. What do you see? In horror of the fact my dad could be a murderer, I turned back around through the scope. He was right. Looking closer at his arms, it seemed human-shaped, but I've never seen forearms extend that far past a man's knees. Its middle finger was noticeably longer than the others. All 7 of them. Its knees were off too, not inverted like a dog or a bird. Its knees were splayed perpendicular to its torso. Strangely enough, its corduroy pants seemed to be tailored specifically for whoever or whatever this was. The cracking noises persisted. It took me a minute, but it was apparent that the shifting sounds were emanating from the mysterious corpse. What exactly am I looking at? Son, the rifle should be aimed directly at its head. No matter what you see, I need you to pull the trigger. Waiting too long will only put us in danger. What? Dad, please, what's going on? I don't... The body shook viciously, its headless frame spasming on the forest floor, crunching with each jerky motion. Now, Will, the second you see its eyes, pull the trigger. I grabbed the rifle, trusting the man I once barely knew in a situation I barely understood. Peering through the scope, I saw what he meant. The top of its skull was slowly reforming. It would be inaccurate to say it was regenerating, like a lizard growing its tail. Instead, the bloodied mud and earth beneath its wound seemed to slither towards the headless corpse's neck, forming first into an oblong shape, and morphing slowly into what resembled a skull, a human skull. Do you see its eyes, Will? I could feel my heart pounding, watching whatever this thing was slowly creep its way back to life. Its massive middle finger began twitching, whipping backwards towards its forearm like a scorpion's tail. Its chest began lifting up, breathing, its ribs almost piercing the white shirt it wore. At long last, the head had returned. Its long neck seemed to struggle, lifting its head up slowly. I've seen freaky monsters in comic books and movies, so I was expecting the worst, bracing for whatever this beast was. Its face shot right up while reclining. Dark blue eyes met mine. It spotted me instantly, as though it knew exactly where I was. There was something familiar about its gaze, though. Looking closer, I realized it had my face, down to every minute detail. What the... Now, Will, yelled my dad, sitting right beside me with his binoculars. Take the shot now. The not-me's face bellowed out a hollow noise, like a broken siren, its voice piercing my brain, though it spoke no words. Its arms slowly dragged up, bracing itself to stand up. I pulled the trigger. The bellowing stopped. I closed my eyes while pulling that trigger, but there was no mistake. Its head was blown clean off. There was a minute of silence between my dad and I. Dad broke the silence first. Good shot, son. We spent several hours up in that box. He explained everything that night. Whatever that thing was, it had been following our family for generations. Dad thinks it's an alien. Our great-grandfather called it a doppelganger. Whatever it was, it used the visage of the youngest man in our family. It left unattended. It would sink closer to whoever's face it wore. It never reached any of our family members because each and every day, 2 members of our family would go out and hunt it down. Its body barely took any damage, aside from the head. It took time to regenerate, but would always regenerate. This is what my father had been hunting all these years. Hunting the not-me for the entire course of my life. It was difficult, you know, my dad began. When you were born was one of the happiest days of my life. I chuckled. More than when Rhett was born? He laughed. Don't get too cocky. Before Rhett, that thing wore my face. Imagine trying to kill yourself over and over again. Thankfully, my father, your granddaddy, took most of that burden. When Rhett came into our lives, that beast changed. I don't know where its clothes come from, but its face always shifts into the youngest. It expects you to protect it, or at least neglect from attacking it. I don't know what it wants with us. All I know is that now it's after you. I turned back towards the body of the beast. Its body lay motionless, but I could see its splattered blood from across the trees slowly slither back toward the ground, in the direction of its husk. When you were born, Dad continued, it took your face, your infant face. I came out here each night, taking that thing down over and over again. Seeing your chubby infant face through that scope was like hell. Pulling the trigger was worse. I cried every day, knowing that it was like killing my son over and over again. That's why I have your pictures around constantly, to know what I'm really protecting, and to remind myself of the fantastic life you have. I may not be around much, but I'm proud of the man you've become. The beast out there is hollow, lifeless. It just imitates you, but it could never be you. I couldn't live with myself if that thing ever took you out of our lives. Or worse, tried to take the life you have for itself. I regret the time I spent not being near you, but it was worth it to preserve the man you've become, and the son I love so, so much. I hope you can forgive me. Of course I forgave him. I mean, the poor guy has been killing forest demons for decades now. Who wouldn't feel bad for the guy? We both spent several minutes tearing up, sharing our feelings while splitting a pack of Coors Banquet. He shared his excitement to start golfing as a pastime. He also shared his concerns for the future. Back when I was young, the beast would grow its head back once every 2 days or so. Nowadays, it's at least 3 times a day. It grows faster based on how old the person it personifies is. I was hesitant to start hunting this thing down each day, but I was happy that we got to hang out more. While he'd be around, he shared with Rhett and me that it was time for him to retire. There can only be 2 hunters at a time, boys. He constantly harped at us. Apparently I had an uncle at some point who tagged along with Dad and our grandfather as a third wheel. It didn't end well for him. When I'm not busy hunting, I get to hang out with my dad. Now that he's around the house more, we've gotten to catch up on a lot of lost time. Turns out he's a massive Red Wings fan, just like me. We even got tickets to a few of their games for next year. It was confirmed that while Dad enjoys his retirement, Rhett would take over as the main hunter for the beast in the woods. Well, I took over Rhett's job as the primary provider for the family's hunting business. Rhett went into those woods 3 times a day, just like Dad. It's been somewhat of a seamless process, albeit unnerving, knowing my brother was blowing my brains out across the forest floor each day. Things will be different now, though. Just this morning, Rhett's wife went into labor. They had a happy, healthy baby boy with dark blue eyes, a short nose, and dark brown eyebrows. A face that Rhett would soon grow uncomfortably familiar with. The lake on my brother's property has no bottom. Me and my brother live on 25 acres out in the middle of nowhere. He inherited it when our dad passed. Our mom and stepdad had already died a few years back, so it's just the 2 of us. When I say out in the middle of nowhere, I really mean out in the middle of nowhere. A 30-mile drive to the nearest grocery store, 40 to the nearest big city. But we like it. It's nice and quiet. My brother Carl is an artist. Not an artsy artist. He does design work for big companies out on the east and west coast. Does all his work on a computer. He can work from pretty much anywhere that's connected to the internet. Now, it costs quite a bit to get internet in the middle of nowhere, but it's possible, and he can more than afford it. Me? I'm Jake. I'm a shiftless, No good lazy layabout. At least that's what my stepdad always said. My bio dad, when he wasn't being an abusive drunk, would say pretty much the same thing. That's fine. I've made my peace with it. I keep busy by taking care of the place, doing the lawn care, the maintenance, painting, all the crap work that needs to be done. We have a pretty simple life. The strangest thing about this place is the lake. Well, it's actually just a glorified pond. It's about 80 feet across, and almost a perfect circle. Sinkhole, I'd guess. It's way out on the edge of the property past the gazebo. Officially, it's known on the maps as Lake 224, but everyone calls it Gasper's Lake, after some fella that lived here like 100 years ago. The water is unbelievably clear, way more clear than I would have ever expected, and deep. The thing is, I have no idea how deep it is. I heard rumors in town that it's bottomless when we first moved out here, but I paid it no mind. But you can't see the bottom at all. One summer, I had a fella from the state fish and game department come out and stock the lake with fish. I thought I'd do some fishing that fall, but it just didn't take. Don't know how or why, but come fall there wasn't a fish to be found. Didn't make any sense. If they'd died, I'd have seen them floating, right? Another thing is the light. Sometimes at night I could swear I see a glow come up out of the water. I got a nice little setup. I'd sit at the gazebo until late in the evening, grilling bratwurst and sipping cold beer from the cooler. But on the way back, that glow. A color that's just not right, you know? Not bright or anything. You can just barely notice it. But it's there. Anyway, my brother doesn't care about any of that stuff. He's got no sense of adventure, no curiosity. He's all about deadlines, meetings, and products. Sometimes he'll fly out from the local airport on a puddle jumper to go see a client, and leave me out here for a week or two. You'd never get me on one of those tiny single-engine planes. I kind of get the feeling he's embarrassed of me, but whatever. He flew out to North Carolina, or maybe it was Virginia one week, and I had the place to myself, so I called up Earl. He's my drinking buddy. I called up Earl and said to him we're gonna find out how deep Gasper's Lake really is. He brought over his John boat, and I'd say about 300 feet of half-inch nylon rope. We were going to be real scientific about this. I tied a cylinder block to one end, and we marked off the rope in 10-foot sections. He backed his truck up to the water, and we got the boat in, and headed out to the center of the lake, and dropped the cinder block over. I figured it'd bottom out at 50 feet or so, but no. That rope just kept flying right on out. 50 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet, just kept going. Maybe we should tie it off, I asked. Yeah, that's probably a good idea, he replied. We got the free end of the rope tied off around the cleats and watched the rope keep spilling out. Every bit of the rope played out, and the boat resonated with a loud thunk. I pulled the rope a bit up out of the water, and could feel the weight of the cinder block on it. Earl? I paused. Earl, there's not any way this lake is 300 feet deep, I said. No way, he nodded. What the actual hell? We gotta get more rope, I said. My uncle's got a full industrial spool of half-inch nylon rope. 1,000 feet. There's no lake anywhere around here that's 1,000 feet deep, Earl replied. I grabbed the rope and started to pull it up. It was going to take a minute or two to pull it back up on the boat. Earl started winding it up as it came in. I got about 50 feet of it on board when it just stopped. Like just dead stop. I leaned back and pulled harder. Nothing. It felt like the cinder block had gotten caught under a ledge. I wrapped the rope around my forearm and gave it one good heave. Hung up on something? Earl asked. I guess so, I started to say when the rope tugged back. Hard. Threw both me and Earl off balance enough the boat flipped over. The water went over my head and I sputtered, righted myself and broke the surface.
Earl came up right beside me and got out a loud, "God dang it." We struggled to get the boat set right, but we got it. That's when I noticed the cleat had snapped right off. Rope and all had gone down into the lake. So, 3 days later, me and Earl were back again. We spent all afternoon setting it up. Got an electric motor to pull the rope back up and a pulley system at the end of a boom winch. It almost looked professional, bolted there in the back of his truck. Almost. Earl grinned and smacked our jerry-rigged setup on the side. I always knew those machine shop classes I took would come in handy. He backed up the truck and swung the winch over the water. It extended out about 10 feet. I tied off another cinder block, no shortage of those around here, and tossed it in. We watched the rope run and run, the spool spinning freely. We had it set up so it would spin in one direction but not the other, so we could winch it back up. The rope spooled out faster and faster. 200 feet, 300. "It's still going," Earl said, incredulity in his voice. 400. "No way," I said. Earl stopped grinning around 600. By 800, neither of us were talking anymore. The spool kept spinning all the way to the end. 4 minutes after I tossed the brick in, it ran out with another loud thunk. Hard enough the truck rocked backwards a bit. Jesus, Jake. What in the actual hell is going on here? That's 1,000 feet of rope. I have no earthly clue, buddy. There's no way it's 1,000 feet deep. I ain't got no more rope. Like, I guess I could order some, Earl said, but was interrupted by a loud groaning coming from the winch. Something was pulling on the rope. I could hear the strain of the fibers. The truck was practically vibrating. Then the front end of the truck started to rise up a hair. "Jake, it's gonna take my truck," Earl yelled as he ran over and hopped in. He started the engine and began to pull away when all of a sudden all the tension let out of the line. I went over to the winch and turned it on and the rope began to wind onto the spool. It took a lot longer to pull it all up than I thought it would. But then I saw and smelled the cinder block. It was covered with a dark, glistening slime, something the color of rotting leaves mixed with oil, and it stank like, God, I don't know, a squished bug mixed with kerosene. I cut the line and let the brick drop back into the water. No way in hell I was touching whatever that was. Earl pulled his truck up away from the edge, got out and came over to where I was staring at the water. "A camera," he said. "What, like an underwater one?" I asked. "Yeah, I know a guy. He's got an underwater rig. A little robot submarine. He uses it to inspect bridge pilings, dams, and culverts for the state. It's rated down to 1,500 feet, but it usually doesn't get used that deep. Got lights and a camera. You can drive it around," he said. "Sounds like a plan," I said. "But Earl," I paused. "Isn't this more than a little bit weird? Like even for around here. Maybe we should call somebody." "I don't know. Like an official?" "Jake, this is the most interesting thing that I've been mixed up in since Farmer Brindle's two-headed goat got loose in the dollar store. Look around. Nothing happens around here." I nodded. This place wasn't known for its excitement. "I'm gonna call him. Get it out here," he said. "I've got an old VCR we can hook it up to. Record what we find," I replied. Earl nodded. "Good idea." The next couple of days passed without incident. I spent the time power washing the garage. I know, high excitement, but it's got to get done. Earl pulled up in his truck the next afternoon. It really was a pretty cool setup. The sub was about 4 feet long and had lights and a camera on the front that could be panned around remotely. We tied it off to the winch with the nylon rope. It had its own coil of cable for the camera that we sat on the tailgate. "I made sure it had a full charge," Earl said, manhandling it out of the truck. "It'll give us at least a couple of hours." Getting in the water took longer than it should have. The thing was heavier than it looked, and we kept second guessing which end was supposed to go in first. I think the camera end goes in last, I said. That doesn't make any sense. How's it gonna see anything pointed in the mud? I didn't say pointed at the mud. I said last. As in, we lower in the tail first. Earl looked at me. That's the same thing. We went back and forth on it for a while before we figured out it didn't matter. The thing would right itself once it hit the water. We felt pretty stupid about that. Alright, easy now, Earl said. As we walked it to the edge, it was awkward. No good place to grip it. For God's sake, Jake, don't drop it. That thing probably costs more than my truck. We got it in without dropping it. Barely. Earl picked up the controller, and we watched it bob there for a second, listening a little to one side, and then it straightened out and sat there humming quietly. Okay, Earl said. Down we go. 300 feet down, it was dark enough that we snapped on the lights fully bright. All it showed was the rough stone on the side of the sinkhole. The water was still crystal clear. Around 400 feet, the walls changed. I almost missed it. Earl, hold up. Can you back up a little? He reversed the sub and we both leaned in toward the monitor. The rough pitted limestone we'd been watching for the last 10 minutes had stopped. What replaced it was dark and smooth, almost glassy. I looked at Earl, he looked at me. We both looked at the monitor. That ain't natural, I said. No, he said, just that. We stayed there a minute, both of us staring at the screen. The sub's lights caught the dark surface and threw back a dull reflection. Whatever it was, it went down as far as we could see. Earl's hand was still on the controller. You want me to keep going? He asked. I should have said no. Yeah, I said. Keep going. At 800 feet, the walls just disappeared. The sub drifted out into the open water, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. The sinkhole had been feeding into something else the whole time. A cavern. The sub's lights didn't reach the far walls, didn't reach the bottom. Just open black water in every direction. And the hole we'd come through sitting in the ceiling like a drain in reverse. Earl? I said. Yeah, he said. Neither of us said anything for a minute. The sub just hung there in the dark, lights cutting maybe 30 feet in any direction and then nothing. God, Earl said quietly. I wish I'd brought some beer. I laughed. Couldn't help it. Then stopped. Keep going down? I asked. He already was. Can you point the lights down? I asked. Earl adjusted the controller and the sub nosed down slowly. The light swept across what I thought was the bottom of the cavern, and I squinted at the monitor. Something was down there. A tangle of shapes, thick and dark and piled on each other like cable left in a heap. What the hell am I looking at? Earl said, mostly to himself. The sub drifted lower. The shapes resolved a little. Thick as tree trunks. Some of them. Thicker. Coiled loosely over and around each other, tapering at the ends, widening in the middle. Some of them were moving, drifting, kind of like seaweed. Earl? I see it. One of the big ones began to uncoil. It peeled away from the mass, and as it moved, it revealed a surface beneath it, dark and rounded and covered in a texture I couldn't make sense of at first. It was dark and bumpy like an old avocado. I was still trying to figure out what I was looking at when it split open down the middle. It was an eye. Had to be 20 feet across. The iris was the color of old bronze, and the pupil was shaped like a triangle, and it was looking up at the sub. My stomach dropped straight out of me. Then the rest of them started moving. All of it. The whole mass coming apart into individual shapes. Eyes on every surface. Opening. Mouths, too. Rows of teeth catching the light, opening and closing on nothing. The cables, the arms, whatever they were, filled the cavern below us. The monitor went dark. Earl, we have to get out of here, I screamed, but Earl seemed frozen. I grabbed Earl's arm. He was still staring at the monitor. Earl? Earl, we have to go right now. The surface of the pond began to swell and boil, whirlpools and waves churning around. He blinked, came back. We ran for the truck. We dove in and Earl started it up, but we didn't make it 20 feet before the back end lifted. It had come up fast. Nothing that big should move that fast. The tires left the ground and Earl screamed something I couldn't make out over the sound of the frame starting to give. I had opened the door and jumped out without even thinking about it. The ground came up quick and I landed with a wet crack as my ankle snapped. From the ground I could see the truck maybe 30 feet up, wrapped in something that looked like a giant black and glistening worm, being pulled toward the water. Earl was still in there. I know because I could hear him screaming. Then the roof caved in to the sound of shattering glass and metal forced beyond its limit. And then I couldn't hear him anymore, as the truck sank beneath the water. The VCR had landed a few feet away. I don't even remember Earl throwing it. I told the paramedics I fell off a ladder. Anyway, now I don't know what to do. My brother's due back in 2 days and the sheriff keeps coming around asking about Earl. The state inspection fellow wants his submarine back, and I don't know what to tell him. All I got is this busted leg and a video we took, and I'm not sure who I need to show it to. I think I'm going to call the governor, maybe the press. Should I call the FBI? What should I do? I don't know how to start this. I've been staring at my screen for 20 minutes trying to figure out where exactly things went wrong. Maybe it started the night of the accident. Maybe it started before that. I honestly don't know anymore. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that 3 months ago, I had a perfect life. Sarah and I had been married for 6 years. 6 quiet, boring, beautiful years. We lived in a small house in Denton Street. She worked at a school. I worked from home doing accounting stuff. We had a cat named Biscuit. We watched movies on Friday nights. We argued about who left the kitchen light on. Normal. Everything was so normal. Then came October 14th. I was driving home from my cousin's place around 11 p.m. Rain was coming down heavy that night. I remember the wipers going like crazy and the road looking like a black mirror. I don't remember the exact moment it happened. 1 second I was driving, next second a flash of white light, a sound like the world cracking open, and then nothing. I woke up in the hospital. Sarah was sitting right beside me, holding my hand so tight her knuckles were white. She had clearly been crying for hours. Her mascara was all the way down her cheeks. "You're okay," she kept saying. "You're okay. You're okay." I had a cracked rib, a gash on my forehead, and a concussion. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. A truck had drifted into my lane. The car was totaled. I spent 2 days in the hospital. Sarah stayed both nights, sleeping in that horrible chair beside my bed. She was the most caring person I had ever known, and I loved her more in those 2 days than I ever had before. Things felt normal when I got home. For about a week, the first thing I noticed was the smell. Sarah always smelled like this vanilla body lotion. She'd been using it since before we even got married. It was one of those small things I loved about her. Whenever she walked into a room, there was this soft, warm smell. About a week after I came home from the hospital, she walked past me in the hallway and I smelled something else. Something cold, like wet earth. Like a basement that hadn't been opened in years. I didn't say anything. I thought maybe it was something she'd picked up outside. Maybe from the garden. I let it go. But it kept happening. The second thing was the way she slept. I've slept next to Sarah for 6 years. I know how she sleeps. She always curls up on her left side facing away from me, with one hand tucked under the pillow. Always, without fail. About 10 days after the accident, I woke up at 2 a.m. for no reason. Sarah was lying flat on her back, completely straight, arms at her sides, eyes closed. She wasn't snoring, she wasn't shifting, she wasn't doing anything. She looked like she was laid out in a coffin. I told myself people sleep in weird positions sometimes. I rolled over and closed my eyes, but the next night, I woke up at 2 a.m. again. Same position, flat, still, arms down. I put my hand near her mouth to feel if she was breathing. She was, but just barely. Tiny little shallow breaths. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. I want to say something here because I know how this sounds. I was not going crazy. I had no history of mental illness. Yes, I had a concussion, but the doctors had cleared me completely. I was not imagining things. I know what I saw. The third thing was the photographs. Sarah loved photos. Our house is full of them. Framed pictures on every wall. Our wedding, our holidays, random Tuesday afternoons she found beautiful enough to capture. She's always been like that. One evening I was dusting the shelves in the living room and I stopped in front of our wedding photo. It's a big one, right above the fireplace. The two of us outside the church, me in my gray suit, her in her white dress, laughing at something one of the guests had said. I looked at it for a long time, then I felt my stomach drop. In the photo, my arm is around Sarah's shoulder. Her hand is up near her face, laughing. Everything normal. Except, Sarah's shadow on the ground behind her was pointing in the wrong direction. My shadow stretched behind me away from the sun. Normal. Her shadow pointed toward the sun, toward the light. Shadows don't do that. Shadows can't do that. I took the photo off the wall. I stared at it for a long time under the kitchen light. I told myself it was a camera trick. A lighting thing. Something with the way the photo was printed. I put it back on the wall and I never looked at it again directly. But sometimes from across the room, I could feel it. Like it was wrong in a way I couldn't explain with words. I started watching her. Not in a crazy way, just paying attention. She never ate much. I noticed that. She used to love food. She could finish a whole pizza by herself on bad days. Now she moved food around her plate. She drank water, but I never once saw her actually swallow a bite. She stopped going to bed before me. She used to fall asleep on the couch by 10 p.m. Now she sat in the chair in the corner of the bedroom just waiting until I got into bed. Then she would lie down. Her phone? Sarah used to be on her phone constantly, texting her sister, scrolling through cooking videos. One day I picked up her phone while she was in the shower. No messages, no call history, no app usage. Like the phone had never been touched. I called her sister, Mira, from my work phone. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual. "How are you? Have you talked to Sarah lately?" There was a pause on the other end. "What do you mean?" Mira said slowly. "I just mean recently, like this week." Another pause, longer this time. "Are you okay?" Mira asked. Her voice sounded strange, tight. "I'm fine, why?" "Sarah hasn't..." She stopped. "Can you come over? Can you come here right now?" I told Sarah I was going to the pharmacy. She smiled at me from the couch, that warm smile I had fallen in love with. "Don't be long," she said. Mira opened the door before I even knocked. Her eyes were red. She looked like she hadn't slept. She sat me down at her kitchen table, and she put her hands flat on the table and she looked at me. "She's been calling me," she said. "Every day. Twice a day sometimes." I stared at her. "Okay." "She's been calling me from a number I don't recognize. Not her number." Mira's voice was barely above a whisper now. "She keeps saying the same thing every time." I didn't want to ask. I asked anyway. "What does she say?" Mira's eyes filled with tears. "She says he survived the accident, but I didn't. Please tell him I love him. Please tell him to look at who came home." I drove home in a state I cannot describe. I walked through the front door. The woman on the couch looked up and smiled at me. "You're back," she said. I looked at her face, the same eyes, the same smile I had kissed 1,000 times. "Who are you?" I whispered. She tilted her head slightly like she was confused by the question. Then she smiled again, wider this time. "I'm your wife," she said softly. And somewhere in the house I heard Biscuit, our cat, let out a long and terrible scream from under the bed. He had been hiding there for weeks. He never hid from Sarah, not once in 6 years. I'm writing this from Mira's house. I haven't gone back. The thing in my house still calls me, from Sarah's number, every night at 2 a.m. I never answer. But last night it left a voicemail. I played it this morning with shaking hands. It was Sarah's voice. My real Sarah's voice, crying. She said only 4 words. "Don't let it stay." I don't know what came home with me from that accident, but it's still in my house, sleeping in my bed, feeding my cat who screams every time it comes near, and I don't know how to make it leave. If anyone has experienced anything like this, please, I need help. I will try to update when I can. Please stay safe. Hug the people you love, and if something feels wrong, even something small, even something you can't explain, trust that feeling. Trust it. Hey, Chris here. Thought the almighty internet might have some solution to my bizarre problem. Well, it's more of a situation than a problem, but I'm running out of time and I'm running out of options. I think my grandmother is about to get killed. I mean, should I say get killed? Or die? I don't know anymore. I should explain. It's a weird predicament I'm in, but I love my grandma and I want to save her. Help her somehow. The problem is that where I live, this town, whenever someone is born, someone has to die. And it's not just being born. If you ever come inside the perimeters of our town, you will inevitably kill someone in here. I know it's crazy, but I swear it's how it works. Trust me, I have enough evidence of that. It's called my life. And trust me, there's a reason our town is in the middle of nowhere. There's a reason we have the insane number of rules we have, and well, there's a reason I'm explaining all of this to the internet, even though it's strictly forbidden by law here. You might be wondering why I'd be worried about my grandma specifically. Well, the thing is, I'm going to have a baby sister. And if you're following so far, I think you know what that means. Or maybe you don't. I should probably explain myself because it sounds simple, but it's not. So let me explain how things work in this hellhole I call home. So, like I said before, outsiders are forbidden to come in. We have no tourists. So don't even think of trying to find me, please. We don't want outsiders. I don't want to be responsible for... I don't want to cause more trouble. We don't even let the people who carry our food and supplies to come in. It's all done with some weird long mechanical tunnels. So there's some basic rules around here. Having animals is not forbidden, but it's highly discouraged, and every animal has to be neutered. Anything from a parakeet to something bigger. Humans excluded, of course. I live with my mom, my dad, and there's me and my grandma. We used to have a bird. Relevant part. Used to. But well, it was my fault. I'm such an idiot. Let me illustrate how messed up this situation is. When I was young, I found a dog, a stray, outside the town's border. I was just a kid. I didn't consider it. I didn't consider the rules. I had some cheese on me and threw it at him. He of course started following me around. And I went home all happy and glad I had a new friend. When I got home, my bird was on the ground. I don't think I need to explain what happened, besides how dumb and naive I was as a kid. My parents, though, oh boy, I was never grounded so hard in my life. They were absolutely fuming. You know the rules here are more like guidelines, and each family has to fend for themselves. I didn't just kill my bird that day. I... I almost killed someone in my family. Like, each family is on their own. When someone is born, usually the person who dies belongs to the family. When I was born, my other grandma from my dad's side died. When someone new comes to town, as rare as that is, it's more random. When I brought the dog, he kind of became part of the family. Animals are different. Sometimes they take another animal's place. Sometimes someone else's. That's why they're highly discouraged. Don't ask me how it works with bugs or worms or something. I have no idea. We still have that dog. I guess we have to. So yeah, this isn't just some quirky little fun scenario for me. It's quite literally life and death. That's why I'm scared. I know what's going to happen. Oh, and by the way, I'm not scared for myself. I know my grandma is next. The older you are in the family, the more likely you are to be picked. It's almost guaranteed. Otherwise, it would be total chaos. So yeah, that's why I can't leave town. That's basically saying goodbye to my parents forever. Everyone in town has to stay, or we essentially get replaced. Which also means I can't really leave to take my grandma's place. Then I'd be gone forever. And maybe my grandma still dies. My sister is born and then some stranger takes my place. I love my family. I don't want to go. And I don't want to deprive them of their son. I don't want my sister to just replace me. But I want to save my grandma somehow. Or at least find some loophole or something. That's why I'm asking for help. Maybe you don't believe me. Let me give you more proof. I told you already, when I was born, my other grandma died. Everyone got upset in my family, but it's what's expected, I guess. Not my grandpa, though. He hated my guts after that. He was really rough with me. I remember him taunting and teasing me, saying one day he would have another kid and then I'd die. Or one time he took me to the border of town and kept pushing me near the lines so that I was almost out. He kept yelling at me. What are you scared of, huh? Scared you're gonna fall? God, I hated that man. The way he died was a joyous one for me. I know what you might be wondering. How did he die? He died of old age. We're not immortal here. That would be silly. The man was 95 years old and a chain smoker. That's not the bizarre part, however. There was a gruesome death in our town some years ago. A man had a girder hit him in the head and killed him straight off. I was one of the people who witnessed it. It messed me up. A lot. I remember being a kid and falling after seeing that. And I remember there was a little girl next to me. She couldn't have been more than 5 years old. She just came strolling by on a bicycle, not giving a crap that a man had just died. She just passed everyone and passed near me. I'll never forget what she said to me. What are you scared of? Scared another one is going to fall on you? I'll never forget her squeaky voice as she rode off in her stupid red bike. I hated that kid. Oh, the man hit by the girder. That's a whole other story. Apparently, everyone in town knew. The man who died, well, he cheated on his wife. And I'm pretty sure the day the kid was born, well, that's the day. The day I saw the girder hit his head and take his lower jaw clean off. He died on the spot, but everyone around, everyone near him, they didn't care. No one cared. It was like karma. Like everyone saying, you deserve it. People in this town are brutal. You obviously can't just have kids. Not out of wedlock and not out of city planning. Our version of Planned Parenthood is quite literally planned. You can't just have kids willy-nilly. There's rules. There's another story I recall of a man who did some, well, things I can't describe on the internet if I don't want to get banned, to his daughter. As soon as the town found out, they hanged him. Yes, we hanged him. Well, not me, I was just a kid, but this place, There's something different about it. It's old. It's sacred. Harming someone else like that, it's like doing that crime times 100. That's what my mom used to say when I was a kid. If you harm someone in town, you're harming everyone. I'm not sure what that means, but at this point, I don't want to think about it too much. I want to retain some of my sanity. And that's not what's weird about this story. When I was older, some of the even older kids told me what else the adults did. Like when the man who was hanged died, they say a stray dog walked into town. Fairly standard stuff, I guess. Thing is, the townspeople took that dog and killed it too. I hate violence towards animals, but they said they had this rage about them, like they knew something. Maybe there was something wrong about that dog, but it didn't end there. Once the dog died, a cat came to town. They killed it too. Then a possum, then a rat, a smaller mouse, a bird, and, well, that's it. That's as much as the older kids told me. They said one other thing that disturbed me a bit. They said afterwards they gathered together and ate every single animal they killed. Cooked, of course. Not that I'd have much interest in eating a cooked rat, I guess. I'm not really sure what happened after that day. Some people tell me the town used to have 1,000 people before that. I heard other rumors that there's something locked up in the basement of the mayor's office, serving some punishment. I'm not sure. Even after I became an adult, they wouldn't say. It's a sort of town secret. It doesn't really matter. You get my drift. Now you understand what's the deal with this place. I'll leave you with one more story if you don't believe me. There was a car crash some years ago. Pretty nasty stuff. 10 people died. Big tragedy for us. I'm not sure I believe what they say, but I was told that day a woman who was going to have a kid actually had quintuplets. The insane part is that she died. Right afterward, 4 people wandered into town. Said they'd been lost in the woods for weeks. We took them in and they became residents. One of them is a nice lady who makes the best pecan pies. You might be thinking, aha, it's not 999 people anymore. Well, the thing is, I sort of lied. The initial report said 10 people died, but that's not true. 2 of them survived. If you can call it surviving. Those people, those 2, what happened to them? Their faces, their bodies? It's no way to live. It's like they're being forced to stay alive. I don't want to talk about them, to be honest. So now you understand what's at stake. If someone dies, someone has to take their place. And when someone is born, well, someone is going to die. Someone in the family. Wait, hold up. My mom is yelling for me. Update. I have to go to this hospital. I'll talk to you later. Edit. Hey guys. I guess I was too late. My mom's water broke and the doctor said the baby is coming sooner than we expected. I seriously messed up. I thought I had another month. It's been a few days and I've talked to my grandma a lot in the meantime. I'm at the hospital writing this, waiting for my baby sister. At least my mom thinks it's a girl. I didn't mention this, but my mom is more traditional. She didn't get a lot of ultrasounds. She just let the baby develop naturally. I guess she's confident the baby is fine. Makes sense in this town. I exhausted all other options. I'm scared about what's going to happen. My grandmother is at peace with what's to come, but it's just so unfair. I really wish I could help her. Thanks for trying, guys, even though there was no time for suggestions. Wait, here comes the doctor now. He looks somewhat shocked. Why was he looking at me like that? I went to talk to the doctor. I can't believe this. I don't understand what's going on. My mom just had triplets. I'm posting this from my car. I've already filed a missing persons report with the police for my parents, and they've cleared it as a crime scene. but there's no way I'm ever going back inside. This all started back in February. Maybe that's why, because of how dreary and sunless that month is. My dad is a good man. I need you to understand that before any of the rest of it. After his mom passed 2 years ago, he got quiet in a way that scared me more than crying could have. And when he found these forums last winter, these wellness communities, I was relieved. He was back to exercising, dieting, sleeping better. He was excited about something again. He'd come down to breakfast and tell me about circadian hygiene and ancestral light environments, and how our eyes evolved for firelight and starlight, not the blue glow from screens and 6500 Kelvin bulbs we drown in now. Honestly, some of it made sense. That's the part nobody warns you about, that it starts off less than harmless. The first simple healthy habit was showering in the dark. He read that artificial light at night wrecks your melatonin, and the bathroom was the worst offender. So we started showering with night lights for minimum light. I went along with it. I didn't have to read shampoo bottles anyway. My sleep even improved. Then it was no screens after sunset. The emitted light causes dark circles. This was a huge issue. My mom and I felt we shouldn't have to change our routines and give up creature comforts for his lifestyle choices. What sucked was he was understanding, and compromised to sequestering himself in rooms with no screens after sunset. It upset us, and eventually we cut back on our screen time just so he could spend more time with us. We ended up bonding more. Who could have guessed phones and streaming services separated families? Even after he changed all the bulbs in the house to the lowest Kelvin, he still refused to turn on a light unless it was absolutely necessary. It deeply irritated me and my mom, because he'd still use his laptop, on the lowest brightness setting with blue light blockers however, to spend his days on the wellness forums, researching. He started talking at dinners about how even fire and candlelight was a compromise our ancestors wouldn't recognize. How the truly restored nervous system needs real dark, total dark, the dark of a cave, a womb, a place where your sunset melt into the environment and your edges blur. Your bodily systems balance out and synchronize. And you go back. We didn't have a response. That's where I should have said something though. Anything. 2 weeks ago, he taped contractor bags over my bedroom window while I was at school. When I got home, he was proud. He showed me the seams, how he'd gotten it so that there wasn't a single pinhole. Cassie, I'm getting a 2 on the lux meter. 2? The guys on the forums are gonna love this. Staring at his phone, posting it. 3 days ago, I came downstairs and tried to flip the kitchen switch. No 2000K melatonin improving infrared bulb. Gone. Every light bulb in the house was gone. He'd gone around with a stepladder and a trash bag and collected all of them. Even the one in the oven. Even the little one in the fridge that you'd have to break the door mechanism to reach. The bag was filled with shattered bulbs in the bin outside. I came back inside and found him reading the forums. Before he could open his mouth, I screamed at him. Thank God Mom had already gone to work. I screamed and cried and begged him to just please be normal. Please stop looking at his laptop while I talk to him. He just looked sad. Like I had hurt his feelings over something he was proud of. He looked normal. He said he would fix things, and put everything back to how it was originally. He promised and hugged me. I went to school worried for him and Mom all day. A part of me truly believed I'd come home and the house would be bright, with clear windows and televisions blaring. During the day I tried to call my mom, hoping to prep her on the latest piece of insanity, but kept getting sent to voicemail. My vision stung driving into the sun on the way home. My eyes, all too well chronically adjusted to the dark. I kept thinking about being so exposed in the light, and how my dad was right. That being in the dark made you lose your sense of bodily self. I wish I could have crawled under my blankets in bed, and let the feeling of sensory deprivation dissolve the knot in my stomach. When I got home, Mom's car was already in the driveway. The house looked like a bad dream, a perfectly normal exterior with flat black windows. I went inside, and even leaving the front door open did nothing to pierce the all-encompassing darkness. I went to the front window to tear the contractor bags with my nails, and winced as I scraped something hard and gritty. I shined my phone light and saw he had painted some kind of truck bed liner over the windows in thick layers. I turned to the interior. Dad? Mom? The phone flashlight was all I had. Living in darkness made it feel less like a beacon, and more like a trespasser. I checked all upstairs, calling for them. As I made my way back down near the kitchen, I froze. The basement door was open. I hadn't checked the basement yet. Dad? Mom? Please. Please say something. Nothing. The stairs go down into the unfinished part. Bare studs, concrete floor, the furnace ticking. I was imagining that. No need for a furnace when it has that pesky pilot light. He had disconnected it and snuffed it out before. The basement was huge. At the far end, there's a little room Dad always meant to finish. Just concrete with a shallow alcove in the back where all the previous owners had a safe flush to the wall. Pitch black. My flashlight couldn't find the back of it from where I stood. Something about the room was oppressive. I didn't cross past the threshold. I just did my best to shine the light in. That's the part I keep snagging on. The light went in and didn't come out, like the alcove was deeper than the house. And from inside it, my father's voice. Calm, close. Cassie. I couldn't see him. I want to be precise because the police asked me 4 times and I gave the same answer every time. I was pointing my light directly into that room and there was no one in it. Cassie? Mom's in here with me. Come here. I started crying. I asked him to come out. I begged him. I told him I'd take him anywhere. I'd stop fighting him about the lights. I'd beg every window myself. Just come out, Dad, please. If you come in here, he said, everything will go back to how it was before it all began. I asked him what he meant. I asked him how. I stood there in the dark, asking the alcove how, and there was no answer. There was never an answer again. I walked in. I did. I pointed the flashlight into every corner of that concrete room, and it was empty. No alcove deep as a well. Just a shallow dent in the wall not even a foot deep. No father, no mother. Concrete and dust and the smell of cold concrete in my own breathing. I searched the whole house. Both floors, closets, the attic crawl space, under beds, the backyard. I checked the alcove again and stared at the wall. I screamed myself hoarse. I called the police. They were kind. They were thorough. 6 officers swept that house with real flashlights. Not a phone, and a canine. And they found nothing. No sign of forced entry. No sign of him or Mom. They asked about the windows and I watched them decide quietly. What kind of man spray paints truck bed liner on his windows? And what kind of daughter waits this long to call? The part I can't explain, why it's being posted here and not a news source, is the center of this. I explained why I took so long to call, that my dad started off getting better rather than worse. I went to show them the forums on his laptop, his reasoning for altering the house, and they were gone. I checked his search history, even searching the forum names and keywords. You couldn't burn those images of deep wine red text on black boxes out of my brain. I know what I saw. They shrugged and said they would look into it, and took his laptop. I finished filing the report this evening. 2 missing persons, house clear and safe to enter again. No signs of intruders. So that's everything. That's the whole thing, start to finish in order. The way I needed it down before the doubt finishes settling in. If you are just finishing this, scroll up to where it all began, where my dad was still just a grieving family man getting too into a wellness trend, where the worst thing in the house was no Netflix after sunset. I want you to read it knowing how it ends. I started sleeping with the dome lights of my car on. Never any dark. I think about what he said the dark would help undo. How it would feel like a return to a womb. Something where you would blur and meld with the universe in desensitized harmony. Before even the Big Bang brought light. Going back to how it was before it all began. And some nights I lie in that careful light, and I find myself wondering what would happen if I'd walked into the dark a little faster. I think about it more than I should. I got the security cameras for my 40th birthday. My wife said it was a stupid gift. She said we lived in a safe neighborhood. She said I was being paranoid. She was right, but I installed them anyway. The cameras cover the front door, the driveway, and the backyard. I check the footage every morning while I drink my coffee. It's become a routine, a habit. I don't even think about it anymore. I notice the figure on day 12. The backyard camera catches the whole yard, fence on both sides. A small shed in the corner, woods behind the fence. The footage from 3:11 a.m. showed something standing near the shed. I paused it, zoomed in. It was tall, thin, dark, just standing there, not moving. I stared at it for a long time. It didn't move in the footage. It didn't move on the live feed when I pulled that up either. I checked the footage from the night before. Same spot, same time, same figure. I checked the night before that. Same thing. I checked the entire week. Every night at 3:11 a.m., the figure appeared. It would stand near the shed until 4:03 a.m. Then it would disappear between frames. 1 second there, the next second gone. I didn't tell my wife. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself it was a trick of the light, a reflection, a tree branch. I told myself a lot of things. I started staying up. I'd sit in the dark living room with my laptop open, watching the live feed. Every night at 3:11 a.m., the figure would appear, just standing there, not moving, not looking at the house, just present. I started noticing things about it. It was always facing the same direction, not toward the house, toward the fence, toward the woods behind the yard. I wondered what it was looking at. I checked the footage from the other cameras, the front door, the driveway. The figure never appeared on those, just the backyard, just near the shed, just facing the woods. I asked my neighbor about it. He's lived next door for 20 years. He said he'd never seen anything unusual. He said the woods had always been quiet. He said it with a look on his face that made me think he was lying. I asked my wife if she'd ever noticed anything in the backyard at night. She said I was spending too much time on those cameras. She said I needed to relax. She said it with a tone that made me stop asking. I didn't stop watching. I started marking the dates. Every night it appeared. Every night it faced the woods. Then I started noticing the changes. Small at first. Almost unnoticeable. On night 23, it was a foot closer to the fence. On night 27, its head was slightly tilted, like it was listening. On night 31, its arms were stretched towards the woods, both of them, fingers extended, almost reaching. On night 39, it was standing at the fence line, right up against it, still facing the woods. I took a walk out there one afternoon. The woods were quiet, too quiet. No birds, no animals, just the sound of my own footsteps. I walked for about 20 minutes before I turned back. I didn't go into the woods again. The figure kept appearing, every night, different positions, different postures, but always facing the same direction, always facing the tree. Then last night, I checked the footage. 3:11 a.m. The backyard was empty. I scrolled back. The figure had appeared at 3:11 a.m. as usual, but at 3:41 a.m., it had turned, For the first time in all the footage I'd watched, it had turned. It looked toward the house, then it disappeared between frames. It never came back. I stayed up until morning. I watched the live feed. Nothing. I spent 3 hours staring at the footage from the night before. Then I noticed something I should have seen weeks ago. The figure never once looked at the house. Not even when the porch light came on. Not even when I walked into the yard one night, stupidly brave, and stood 20 feet from it. Not even when I shouted at it. Whatever it was watching wasn't here. I don't know why it left. I don't know what made it turn. I told myself it was a good thing. It was gone. The thing that had been standing in my backyard every night was finally gone. I should be relieved. I'm not relieved. I woke up this morning and checked the footage from last night. Something was standing near the shed, facing the house, standing exactly where the other one used to stand. The first creature is gone. Something else took its place, and now it's looking directly at the room I'm sitting in. I rewound the video to see when it appeared. It was there at 3:11 a.m., but it started moving at 3:47 a.m. One step toward the house. Then another at 3:48. Another at 3:49. I kept watching. The camera never showed it reach the house. It just disappeared between frames. I checked the front door camera. Nothing. The driveway cam. Nothing. Then I checked the backyard feed again. The shed was empty. The yard was empty. But something was standing directly in front of the camera, close enough that all I could see was a dark shape, looking into the lens, looking past it, looking at me. And for the first time since I bought these cameras, the image wasn't recorded footage. It was live.